Welcome everyone to this session on how skills and the learning and employment record are shattering the glass ceiling. I'd like for you to meet our panelists today, and I'd like to start with Casey.
Thanks, Rick. Good morning, everyone. My name is Casey Thorne, Director of Skills Architecture with Western Governors University.
Hi, everyone. My name's Alex Kaplan. I'm the worldwide leader of the Learning Credential Network blockchain at IBM.
Hello, everyone. My name is Darren Hobbs. I'm the Director of Academic Records and Credentials at Western Governors University.
And my name is Rick Torres. I'm the CEO of the National Student Clearinghouse, and I will be moderating today's session. So let's talk a little bit about the pathways between education and workforce. And, this is the way it has worked for the past generations. You leave high school and either enter a trade or enroll in a community college, a 2-year school, a 4-year school, where you pick your life's path and spend 2, 4+ years on generating your initial pathways through a college experience as you lay the groundwork for your career. Sometimes the path you take is driven by personal choice. More often, it's largely determined by privilege, levels of awareness of opportunity, and social conditions. Access to education and the talent pipeline have been anything but equitable, and this past year has revealed that. In reality, today and the future, the job, and more specifically, the roles you may have available in 10 years, likely do not exist with respect to the role profiles and the actual skills and competencies required for those roles. You will more than likely work with several organizations with many different job titles and follow a career and learning trajectory that you can't possibly fully predict at this stage of the game. Education, learning, including applied learning, will be an ongoing part of that path of a working and learning loop, as a changing workplace requires you to upskill and reskill to meet new realities. A little bit of data. 64% of today's college students work while they're enrolled. Almost 40% are older than the age of 25. Half are financially independent, and only a quarter are parents. And only 13% live on campus. When you think about it, a one and done 2- or 4-year degree at the start of your career are no longer the only educational currencies of the job market. What matters is what you can do. Think about the interviews you go on. People ask you, what have you done? What can you do? And what learning opportunities you have to prepare you for your next opportunity. But a skills-based learning and working ecosystem is tricky. Educators, employers, and learner workers will have to speak the same language in course descriptions, job descriptions, learning outcomes, and resumes. Our panelists today are part of a cross-functional, comprehensive effort to move us in that direction. It's a complex effort with lots of moving parts: learning and employment records, open skills libraries, rich skill descriptors, and so on. So let's get into this discussion. My first question is for Darren. Darren, can you briefly describe what a learning and employment record is, an LER, and how do skills intersect with LERs to improve opportunity for workers?
Sure, and thank you for that question, Rick. A learning and employment record is this new kind of record that, like its name implies, is a combination or an accumulation of the learning individuals have experienced and obtained, as well as employment experiences and job history. It is truly a comprehensive record that accumulates all of the achievements we as individuals obtain throughout our lives. It's learner-owned. The learner gets to manage how that record is used and leveraged. And it's made up of many different inputs, if you will, from across many different providers and areas of opportunity where learners can go and obtain training and skills. Higher education as an input, education providers, workforce training, military, job experience. All of these are inputs into a learning and employment record. And skills are very important in this concept because when all of those achievements are denominated at a skills level, when they communicate the skills that are part and parcel to those achievements, it starts to speak a common language, a language that we can all share, from higher ed to employment, from military to employment and higher ed. We start to understand each other. The days are over where we had to interpret course descriptions. With skills, we understand exactly what each of us are speaking about in terms of the learner's acquisition of skills and their achievements. But I'm interested, Rick, do you believe that is an accurate analogy or summation of an LER? What are your thoughts?
Well, thanks, Darren. Well, let me tell you how, I agree with everything that you've said. And as I've thought about it, the clearinghouse being a very large, data organization where longitudinal continuity is the name of the game, I've seen the LER, an effective LER ecosystem, being one that can effectively and efficiently represent lifelong learning continuums that can be shared by the learner, but then built upon with longitudinal efficacy. What does that mean? That means as you get skill extensions, whether it's a learning skill extension that you're applying book knowledge or applied knowledge that you learn by where you're applying a trade or whatever it is, that you can longitudinally extend that to your existing learning in a seamless fashion. I think when you think about the transitions that happen over the course of a lifetime of a learner, you have a school-to-school transition, right? So you go from one school to the other. It could be a 2-year to a 4-year school, a high school to a college. Then you can go from school to a business, and from one business to another business, and from that business back to school to get reskilled and retrained. And an effective ELR ecosystem is one that can enable learning to happen throughout that continuum. And I believe that that is the goal, that is the aspiration that we're all shooting for with the LER record. So,
That's absolutely right.
Darren, that's kind of my response for that and my hope at the end of the day. So let's build on this thought and let's go over to Casey. Casey, how does the learner record contribute to students' agency regarding their own learning and achievements in the LER ecosystem?
So the LER is exciting for me because of this notion of a continuous record of employment history, internships, education that can follow along with a student, and the more interoperability that we get between systems so that it's easier for them to port those from new opportunity to new opportunity, the better. I really see the power in the LER in giving students agency and opportunity that they haven't had before, is because of the power of skills that can be embedded in the achievements that are surfaced to an LER. There are two major things that get me really excited when I talk about this work as a self-proclaimed skills warrior. I believe in the power of skills and how they enhance a learning and employment record for students in a couple of ways. The first one is the more skills data that can be associated with credentials and experiences that are included in an LER, the more opportunities there are to see pathways to opportunity for learner workers that they may not have had access to before. For example, to be able to see where their skill set that they have picked up over, let's say, the last 15 years working in accounting, where might the skills that they had picked up and demonstrated during that time be transferable to other industries, other sectors? Or if they're looking for a promotion and they want to move up in their accounting profession, and there are particular skills that they need to develop, what are educational pathways that are the most efficient way to goal for them to reach those additional skills to obtain that change in job? So pathway and transparency into opportunity is one big way that students have opportunities and agency within pursuit of their goals that they haven't had before through skills in the LER. The second one that really excites me is the more that we are translating credentials and achievements into skills, the more able that we will be, both as employers and as education institutions, to give credit where credit is due to every individual. We are not just picking up skills in a four-year higher ed institution. Individuals are gaining skills, developing important skills across a lifetime of work and learning in education settings, in work settings, in internships, in life in general. And to be able to capitalize on those skills in pursuit of educational pathways or new jobs is something that the LER, through skills data, can really help make possible. I'd also just want to add with this, if we have seen anything resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic that we find ourselves in, we know that it has inserted added challenges into the workforce. And now more than ever, insights into transferable skills across industries are absolutely critical for every individual, every learner worker, but also for employers so that they can see where they have internal talent that they potentially could be leveraging in other capacities depending on their needs so that they all can remain nimble in a shifting labor market.
Well, Casey, that's a great point, and I was going to, actually talk about that a little bit before we move to the underlying kind of technology that's involved here. I mean, if you think about the number of displaced workers out there, all of us have been in countless conversations around what can we do about this? And, this is where an LER becomes a very important factor, and the underlying ecosystems that can help learners understand how what they've done in their past can contribute to a new journey for them as they're moving into a new future. This is such an important set of conversations that have to be enabled as part of the ecosystem that we've been talking about. And like any good ecosystem these days, it requires a lot of technology. So let's go to our resident technologist over here, Alex. Can you discuss the technology behind an LER and why blockchain, for example? What about machine, readability? I mean, how does all of this come together to help support and lay a foundation on a successful LER ecosystem?
I mean, it's important to really first begin by talking about what are we trying to accomplish here, which all of you have done just a terrific job. And I think what I would add in from an employer perspective, we are very committed to the transition to a skills-based economy because we're looking to create a very diverse and inclusive workforce that reflects the world in which we operate. And we're looking to create a workforce that has the skills that are needed for us to deliver value to our clients and meet our business objectives. So this is a critical part of our global strategy as a business, as IBM. But in order for that to happen, we have to have both a national and a global infrastructure that facilitates this happening. I think about skills almost akin to a digital currency. It's the skills currency of the future for an individual. So I'm a person, over the course of my career, I'm earning credentials, I'm getting badges, I'm getting degrees, I'm assigned to different kinds of projects. I'm accumulating a really valuable and important repository that demonstrates the kind of work that I can do and the kind of fields that I can do it in with the permissions that I need through licensure certifications in order to do that work. And I need to control that data. I want to be able to use it much like I would, let's say, a personal medical record, but I alone want to make those decisions about who I can share that information with, how much of it I can make available, and I want to make those decisions. So I think that, an infrastructure has to start with the person first, who needs to be the center point of controlling that data and being able to take that data and information out in the world. To pull that off, we have to have a global and national infrastructure that allows that to happen, much like the internet. so that it's seamless, that as I move from job to job, as I accumulate skills and learning experiences from different places, that to me as the user of all of this, it's just seamless. These skills can be moved around. I could use them to apply for graduate school. I could use them to apply for a job. I could provide them to my manager in order to get assigned to a project that I'm really keenly interested in. And so the infrastructure to make that happen is really about two primary things. So blockchain is an important technology because it has unique characteristics that allow us to manage what we call the public-private key infrastructure, which allows for the transfer of credentials back and forth to an individual and between individuals and others, as well as it serves as an immutable permanent record of the transactions for credentials. So let's say an academic institution, I get my degree, that degree goes on the blockchain. Well, that record is there forever. And I can see who put it up on the blockchain. I can see any changes that might have been made to it. And it can serve as a trust anchor. That way, when I go over and I try and apply for a job, well, the employer, the potential employer, can see that that certification, that credential, is in fact valid and accurate. So what we're doing is we're providing just a much higher level of trust and integrity to the kind of digital credentials that we're all going to see in the future. We're empowering individuals with control over those credentials so that they can do things like look for jobs. We're providing information to feed into compassing tools and pathways applications that can help us understand, given the skills that I have and the career aspirations that I have, you know, what might be a good area for me to upskill or to reskill myself for a job. So we have to have an infrastructure. It has to be available to everybody. And it'll set the standards and the basis for how all this technology integrates together in a way that from the holder of the credentials, the issuer of the credential, the requester of the credentials, it's seamless, it's effective, it's efficient, it's trusted, and it's surrounded by appropriate levels of privacy and security.
Great response, Alex. Thank you. And, so let's talk about, all of us are engaged in different waves of activity that are ongoing right now. And I'd like to kind of get your sense of milestones for the upcoming year. So if you had to think about, the work that's going on behind the scenes, how would you see this evolving over the course of the next year? And Darren, maybe we'll start with you. I mean, what are some of your thoughts, like major milestones that you would hope for over the next year as we are moving the agenda forward here?
So in addition to getting those inputs into the LER, learnings, experiences, etc., I'm really fascinated to see the development of the pathway functionality that can really surface to learners the myriad opportunities that is in front of them as they gain a skill, as they secure an achievement. I just see this branching of opportunities unfolding in front of them, giving them an awareness that sadly, too many of us have been limited in that awareness based upon who our friends are, where we live. This really does open up the horizon for learners to see how their skills can transfer in many different ways. And the future is vast for them.
Great. Casey, over to you. What are some of your hopes and aspirations for this upcoming year?
So I think in the upcoming year, I share Darren's sentiment about the pathwaying opportunities to provide learner workers with insights into both career as well as educational pathways to help them achieve the goals that they have for themselves. I really see in the next 12 months, there has been so much innovation already around the learning and employment record just in the last 12 months that I think the next year you're really going to see different kinds of application technology that can be built upon the LER, be it blockchain or other tech that underlies it, to just further provide employers and learners with more cost-effective ways to connect talent with opportunity. So that could be, providing geolocated information for individual learners about jobs and necessary skills for those jobs where they are located, and just take the friction out of connecting workers, talent with employers.
Casey, thank you. And Alex, over to you. Do you have thoughts on this?
I think in the next year, there's a few things that are really critical to happen. One is that I think we need to start to build these learning and employment record infrastructures at the local level through important projects like the Indiana Achievement Wallet, through projects that are going on in Colorado, North Dakota, California, Florida, Texas, that really show how this infrastructure can make a difference in people's lives and better connect them with jobs. Secondly, we need a national LER infrastructure strategy. We need our federal government to coordinate activities and to encourage the development of a national LER infrastructure. They need to do that in collaboration with the private sector, with philanthropic organizations, and with our academic community in the United States, as well as to begin to adopt these principles at the federal level, both in terms of federal hiring, as well as using LERs to reduce administrative and regulatory burdens. So I think 2021 is all about beginning the journey towards an infrastructure and proving out how we can provide value to learners, to employers, and to credential issuers around the LERs and making them real. And I expect to see that we'll see some very exciting projects in regard to that in the coming year. I think we're at an inflection point here where we know enough. We have the technology in place. We understand the issues. We have important work being done, like by Open Skills Network from Western Governors University and other parts of the ecosystem that can really come together and can really make a difference. And I think it's really urgent given the implications of the pandemic, particularly on underserved and challenged communities, people of color, people who've been unemployed and now need to get new jobs. So I think we all have to act with a high degree of urgency to make this happen.
Alex, I would agree with that. And I would also add to this that, I think education is used to a lot of what I would call stovepipe efforts to try to improve ecosystems. And I think this is the year where we realize that this actually, while it is a national play, can have regional and local impacts, right? And I think what I'm hoping for this year is that there are some demonstrated verticals out there where the value to employers is demonstrated. They understand the ROI. They understand the benefit. The value to the students. They understand that they've been able to discover new opportunities. And institutions have realized that they can also educate their students moving forward, right? Leveraging skills, leveraging a learning continuum. And this ecosystem, once demonstrated, I think can bring the right players together. Enterprise has to be included, the industry. The learners are at the middle of this, and schools have to be also part of this. And they have to come together. And my hope is that this year, through several verticals, the proof of concept is something that people realize is not just a local thing, that it can be regional, that it can be state, and that it can be national, right? That's the potential, and that's the opportunity that lies in front of us here. So I know we're almost at time here, but I wanted to give all of you the chance to have a last word on LERs and skills. So Darren, I'll start with you. And, very quickly, any parting words that you'd like to share with the group?
What I love about the LER is that it finally allows learners to take control of their records and develop their unique skills and talent brand and assert the same.
Casey, over to you.
What I really love about the potential of the LER is for every individual to be able to capitalize on the skill set that they have, regardless of degree, and that skills can become a new currency that can ultimately become the coin of the realm.
Alex?
We've been transitioning to a skills-based economy for a long time. The pandemic has really accelerated that transition, and we need to have in place an infrastructure that makes it easier to connect workers with jobs.
And I'll end it by saying that I really think this is a tremendous opportunity to open the door to opportunities for all and address some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion issues that we've been having across this country. This is a systemic way to do it. I want to thank you all for your input today and for a great session. So take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.